Hello, LinkedIn and Facebook. You're here with me and Ryan. We're going to talk about things that really matter to us besides our tattoos.
Yes.
We've got a lot. I mean, Ryan wins right now, so I got to get to work on that. I'm going to let everybody in. We'll keep the combo going. I am curious before we officially jump in, Ryan, how old were you when you got your first tattoo?
Goodness, great question. I think I was right around 24, 25.
Yeah. You live in them. I can tell they're really a part of you.
Yeah. They're they all, like everybody else, well, not everybody's tattoos mean something.
Sometimes we just get them.
Yeah. Mine do mean something. This is my favorite one. This was drawn by my daughter. It represents both my daughters, Bria and Brenna.
That's
Brenna
rad.
drew that. Yeah, she drew it when she was 14, 15. She just sketched it on a piece of paper. And I was like, that looks like a really cool hand tattoo. So, yeah, I just decided to go for it.
Isn't that funny with tattoos? Because on one hand, when you get a tattoo, you're like, this has deep personal meaning. I have a wolf on my arm, and I've got one up here too. You're like, these have deep personal meaning. But on the other hand, you're like, I'm doing it. I'm just gonna do it. And people are like, you gonna like that when you're 80? I'm wearing it now.
I do a lot of stuff right now. I'm not gonna like when I'm 80. What are you talking about?
Point. Well said. So true.
So you have two wolves on your arm?
I have a wolf, and then I have arrows.
Okay. I thought you had two wolves. I'm like, you're gonna have a whole wolf pack by the time you're done. It's gonna be all over. Yeah, very cool.
Just wolves everywhere. Yeah. I do want to get animals. I do want to get big mammals like a lion and a bear.
That's
cool. Some days I just think about that needle, and I'm like, I think I'm good for today.
It hurts so bad.
Oh, people.
Tattoos are like love.
Hurts so good. Hurts so bad.
Hurts so bad. Hurts so good. It's so true.
The worst part on this guy is the fur. When you think, oh, it's soft little fur. That didn't hurt. Yeah, they go over the same spot 100 times to make it look fluffy. So just a word. On the knuckles too. Well, welcome back, everybody, to our tattoo podcast. It is here. It's good to see your faces. We are going to be dissecting all of our tattoos. We're not doing anything about employee engagement or anything like that. We just have really derailed in the first 3 minutes. So just kidding. I am so excited, though. I'm hyped up because Ryan is here with me. He feels like a big brother. I've known him for a while now. And I asked him to come to the porch because here on the porch, we talk about things that matter most to leaders that know that they're leading humans who are heart-centered. And I believe that we as leaders have a true obligation to grow personally and lead others from a grounded and healthy and healed place. And so sometimes on the porch, you'll see that we bring on psychologists, we bring on neuroscience experts, storytellers. Ryan McCarty's in that same vein. Anything that helps us grow personally, that challenges us, and ultimately helps us impact the culture of our organization. I'm so glad you're here with me. We're so lucky to have Ryan. If you haven't met Ryan yet, go follow him on LinkedIn. You're going to see all the cool stuff he's doing. He's been featured on Huffington Post, Inc.com, People, Forbes, all the big magazines. And with more than 25 years of leadership experience in the nonprofit and for-profit industry, he has passion for inspiring employees and customers and igniting positive change in the world. And I knew this within the first 5 minutes of meeting him. I knew that he was this type of human. He created Culture of Good, Inc., which is to inspire other businesses to create truly altruistic programs that make the world a better place. Work isn't just about getting the stuff done anymore, is it, Ryan?
No, definitely not. That's what we do. The big question is, why do we show up in the first place?
Oh, I love it. Yes.
Yeah.
And hey, thanks so much for coming in because I've got so many questions for you. And I know people were emailing me. I got so many personal messages asking to see this recording because on an email I had said, Ryan's going to talk about bringing your soul to work. So thank you for spending time with us and sharing your perspective on this. This is huge.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I live for these conversations because I think they're transformative.
Yes.
And they provide a sense of hope that there's more than what we've been experiencing, which is a really good thing to believe in, that there's actually more in the
Yes.
workplace and in the world. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I want to
Yeah.
dive in. I just want to ask this question because I know based on our backgrounds too, how important it is to bring our soul to work. Will you tell me, what does that even mean? If we start with that question, what does it mean to bring your soul to work?
Well, I answer that in the easiest way by saying what you said earlier, being very heart centered, right? Like the
Mhm.
fullness of your heart, just bringing all of who you are into the workplace. And from my perspective, seeing that the work that I was doing in nonprofit work for over 20 years was very soul led, right? It was very
Yes.
values driven. It wasn't just about values listed. It was like, here's what we really believe to be true. Here's what we hope to see happen in the world. And here's, if we fully show up as ourselves, full of heart as leaders, we can really see that transformation take place in the workplace and world. And so to bring your
Mhm.
soul to work is to bring all of who you are, the dreams, the hopes, aspirations, the fullness of who you are in your heart, and
Yeah.
that is the biggest piece of your soul. Now we could get into like how I define soul as your unbounded self, that there's no limits, that your soul is always the compelling voice inside of you that's calling you deeper into relationships with people, into truly going from being a manager to being a leader, to really caring about people with the fullness of your heart, not just simply, I think I posted earlier this week, not just simply asking people what you need from them, but what you want for them. And
Mhm.
so we've all had different leaders. The leaders that have had the most impact on our lives are those leaders that led from their soul.
That's right.
It wasn't about how skilled they were. It wasn't about what they knew more than us. It was about how they showed up for us. It was about how much they cared. It was about when we were going through difficulty and setback in our lives, they were there. They were present in the good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about bringing our soul, there's a lot of implication to that, but I would say it's like bringing your full heart into everything that you do. So you don't have to check your heart at the door when you go to work, right? You don't have to check your feelings. You don't have to check your beliefs. You can bring the fullness of who you are, your feelings, your belief, behavior, all of it aligns with, this is fully who I am. This is my heart, and I'm bringing that to work every single day. And allowing employees to do the same, which I think is a shift, right? From looking
Yeah.
at people as just those, like you described earlier, that just get the stuff done. you
Yeah.
know?
What do
Yeah.
you think what do you think happens if people don't bring their soul to work? If they are just like, "Hey, work is to work. It's to get things done and go home and make a living." What do you think happens to somebody when they live in that mentality?
Well, I think that works for some people for certain seasons of their
Yeah,
life. You know,
that's
I
true.
don't I don't necessarily think it's going to be such a detriment that, they're miserable, but there's such a miss there because you're not fully engaged, you're not passionate. We're human beings, we're very complex, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of dimension to us. We're not one dimensional. We're not just a task. We don't just show up to get a task done. We're dealing with things at
Mhm.
home, we're going through struggles ourselves, all of those realities. And I think when we detach that part of us
Mm.
from our work, then we actually detach from ourselves. And I do think that has negative implications on us, spending 8+ hours a day in activity that we can't fully be ourselves, certainly can't be a healthy thing for us mentally and emotionally. But when we're showing up to work and that work affords us the permission to care for each other, it gives us opportunity to give back and to care for our community. It allows us to take extra time with customers to get to know them relationally, not just transactionally. All of those things give us a far more healthier environment to
Mm-hmm.
flourish in, to experience the fullness of our own soul. You know, that the
Yeah.
part of us that wants to show up, that wants to care about others, but doesn't know if I can even love people at work. You know, can I really
Yeah.
show up for people? You know, what if I don't get my work done because I needed to talk to my coworker an extra 30 minutes to an hour because their whole life is falling apart, you
Yeah.
know? And so those things where we're putting people before process and people before other, you know, and really, really showing up, the detriment to not doing that is it doesn't provide an environment for us to flourish,
Yeah.
quite frankly. But when we have a leadership culture that cultivates that, then we flourish. Then we can fully realize, you know, our passion, what we really want to craft into our daily work, so that we actually love what we're doing. I don't know
Mhm.
why anyone would live a life where a lot of their time is spent doing shit that they don't. Can I cuss?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
We're on the porch, so
We're just, we got Waterloo on the porch. It's gonna get crazy up in here, everybody.
oh God. So you know, I think there's a huge miss because we're detaching parts of
Yeah.
who we are in order to fit into an environment that we don't love,
Yep.
working with people that we're not really fully connecting with, therefore we don't have robust relationships
Hmm.
in a major part of our day.
Yeah.
And it's just a massive, it's just sad to me. It's
Yeah.
like really sad to think that as you know, there's environments where people can't fully be themselves, you know, or fully realize their passion in their work.
Yeah.
And yeah, so anyway.
Well, no, you bring up a good point because there's almost this false belief that, well, if everybody came to work as their full self, we wouldn't get anything done. Almost like, so we're not, I don't think we're in tension with, humans being productive. We like to produce, we like to create. Humans are made that way. And we are highly social and relational creatures. It seems
Yeah,
like these get pitted against each other, though. Either you're going to have social relationships at work and do mediocre work, or you're going to be like grinding it out, being productive independently. Do you ever
that
see those
binary.
living? Yes. Like it couldn't be both.
Yeah, leaders don't think in binary ways. Managers do. And
Yeah.
that's one of the differentiators between a manager and a leader. A manager sees things very black and white, and it's either one way or the other.
Yep.
And a leader actually sees the fullness of a person that they're leading, right? And they
Yeah.
recognize that we are hardwired for connection,
Yep.
that we do want to be connected and engaged with those that we work with, that we choose to stay working where we're working because we actually have connection with a mentor or with
Hmm.
a leader that cares about us. Not a leader that we just kind of like, but a leader that we know personally cares about us. And
Yes.
and those things matter to every single person. And I think you know, something that is taken for granted in some of those binary ways of thinking is there's an assumption that employees don't want the business to succeed, and that's false. No
Yeah.
employee wants where they work to fail, right? And so
Yeah.
part of building a good culture is teaching employees how their contribution matters to the success of the business,
That's right.
you know. And so we can do that and be relational. And so I think as leaders, one of the challenges that we have is to get outside of it has to be one of two ways and always look for the third option. I think that's a powerful way to live your life. It's a powerful way to lead an organization, always looking for a third option. There's always gold when you dig a little bit further. And I think, you know, we limit ourselves, we limit our ability to lead others when we think of it. Either you're grinding it, you're hustling, you're working extra hours, and you're neglecting yourself and your family in the meantime, or you're just walking around with a bleeding heart wanting to change the world and be Mother Teresa and love everybody and just hug everybody. And you know, you can be very productive
Yeah.
and be a very loving, caring person at the same time.
That's a
first
tweet right
first of
there.
all, for yourself, right?
Yes.
Loving and caring for you,
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, even, you bring up this point too of your own, there's two things that come to mind. One is, it's good for you to be connected to people too. It's not just as a leader, for everyone else, I'm going to take care of them, but because we're social creatures, we're meant to have those connections while we are doing our work. They don't have to be separate entities. I'm really curious because this last year, we all responded differently. We all had different kind of stress responses to everything that was happening. And you just, we kind of hinted around this idea of taking care of yourself as a leader and having soul care for yourself.
Mhm.
Can you share a little advice around, how leaders can do that? They're the ones that come to the porch. They're hungry to grow. They show up at practice in the band with me. And I'm curious, what would you tell them? What would be some advice you'd give, given everything you've seen as a speaker and an author this last year?
Well, I'll tell you what I do. I'm
Yeah.
not an expert in this space. I'm a practitioner, right? I think it's important. First of all, we start listening to practitioners more than experts. But anyway,
I love
so
it.
I started asking myself. I asked my body, what do you need? Emotions, what do you need from me, right? And I started finding that I needed certain things. I needed. Can I share? Be just
Yes,
real
please.
vulnerable. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So I needed to speak to a therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I needed to talk to my doctor. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety and a lot of stress. Even doing the work that I'm doing, there's a lot of uncertainty and just everyday stressors that kept compounding. And
Absolutely.
so got on medicine, taking Lexapro once a day. That helped a
Yeah.
ton. Meditating 20 minutes a day for my emotional state. So I knew my body, I needed medicine. My body
Yes.
needed something beyond what I could give it, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what I had at my disposal. So going to a doctor, a therapist was really helpful. Just having conversations around that. The meditation was really important emotionally.
Yes.
Um, for me, that was a game changer. The 20 minutes a day where I quieted my mind
Mm-hmm.
has been so invaluable to me because during the day I find myself needing to quiet my mind. And
Mm-hmm.
just the practice of doing that, taking it
Yeah.
from subconscious to conscious and really being intentional around it, the meditation was a game changer for me. Um, I think it's really important that we find kind of our road dogs too, the people around us that we come hell or high water, they're the one or two people that we can really count on. And I think it's one or two people. I think we
Mm-hmm.
we have others, but I think we need to figure out who our road dogs are.
Yeah.
Those that are like for us, whether the vision fails, they're with us when the business is not succeeding. They're not with us because we're successful. They're with us because they love us.
Yes.
Outside of LinkedIn, outside of our position, our title, all of that. And I think that was very valuable to me, is having those two people in my life that I could just turn to if I needed them. So I think really asking yourself now a couple questions I think is really important. Number one, what do I need in this season of my life? Because
Yeah.
that could look completely different. And secondly, what are my values now? How have they shifted?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we've not done values work since the pandemic, chances are our values have shifted some. They've grown, they've become more complex, they're more dynamic than they used to be. They may be completely different. And identifying what those values are now as compared to what they used to be. Because I think happiness, fulfillment, engagement all comes down to in our soul being healthy comes down to knowing our values, and then also knowing how am I living up and honoring those in the areas of my life, all areas of my life.
Yeah.
So those were really important things for me personally.
That makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. You're talking about your biology, your psychology, your social connections. All of these pieces are integrated within each other. And I think it's just so good for us to all see that even the pillars of strength around us, part of how you stay strong is that you get the right people on your team. You take care of your body. You bring in a therapist. I have got a life team of people that's got 2 therapists. I've got 2 different coaches that I go to. So I know who to ping when I need something, but there's nothing for me more that gets me more frozen in my anxiety than feeling like I can't figure this out. I don't know what the answer is, and I can't do it by myself, and just feeling stuck. And I'm sure all of us at some point this year, just by nature of what we've been through the pandemic, we have felt that moment of, I don't know what to do with myself right now. And I
don't even know why I feel this way.
Exactly. Well, and I think it's interesting too, because humans, we find a lot of comfort in trying to figure out why we feel a certain way. And I love that you were like, I don't have to know all the whys. This is what I know I need moving forward. And that's so powerful, instead of going into the spiral of like, why am I here? What is wrong with me? Why am I this way? It's like, this is what I need today, body. What do you need right now?
Yeah, this is the idea of going from asking why to asking what now.
Yep.
Because we get the answer to why, that still doesn't shift anything for us. The what now is like moving from here forward.
Exactly.
Thinking of concepts of health, and thinking of self-care, and recognizing that all the conversation we're going to have today around how to do this, how to do that, how to engage, all of that, if you were to bring it all the way back to step 1, you've got a leader that needs to care for themselves first.
Exactly.
Everything flows from that. If I'm not caring for me, if I'm not leading myself well, I can't lead my organization well, I can't lead others well, whatever that context looks like. I have the greatest calling, I believe, as a leader, the greatest calling that we have in life is to lead ourselves well. And that looks a lot like healthy decisions, it's choices that provide health, whatever that looks like. And that doesn't mean that all the decisions I make are healthy. We could get into some of that too. We all have biases, and I've got plenty. But along with that, recognizing that, there are ways of making decisions that are healthier for me.
Yes.
That's your greatest calling as a leader. It's one of the most important things I was told early on in life is, whatever you build, Ryan, whatever the organization that you build, business, build it so in 15 years from now, you're going to be happy.
And it's so easy to get off that course, but you nailed it. Like, if we aren't enjoying the journey today, if we can't take care of ourselves today, 15 years from now doesn't even count.
Yeah. I mean, what's success at that point?
Yes. Yeah.
So, I'm trying to build success without mixing in misery along the way. However, I mean, it's always going to be there, so why add to it?
Exactly. Oh, that's so smart. It's so interesting when I hear you speak too, because I always go back to this thought that you went from the not-for-profit world to the for-profit world. And I in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder if leaders are like, well, yeah, you can do that in the not-for-profit world, but over here, where the bottom line, we have one bottom line and it's profit. How is this going to work? And I'm so curious, what made you transition into the business world because in the not-for-profit world, this message is, maybe easier received.
Yeah. Well, either I'm crazy or I believe that there's hope. When I transitioned out of nonprofit work, I had a pretty long, extensive history in full-time ministry and preaching and missional work and giving back. And every single day, even when it was difficult, I had this North Star that gave me a sense of meaning and purpose, right? It was very fulfilling work. And when I came into the business world, I had no context for business life. Prior to that, it was all nonprofit. Since I was a teenager, that's all I had ever done. And so I came into the for-profit space. I didn't know the rules. I've been learning the rules ever since. All the stuff that you're saying, like,
Yeah.
is that really possible? I didn't know. I didn't have a context where that wasn't possible.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I came into business and saw the company that hired me with over 2,000 employees. I just saw them all as like souls, human beings with a desire for meaning and purpose.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, if we could create a culture within this business, what a great impact that would have on the world. And the nonprofit work I was doing was to impact the world in positive ways. That's what I was doing.
Yes.
And, I just 9 years ago, almost 10 now, just saw business as being a catalyst for great good, and thousands of employees across the country could really impact the world in a positive way. And I just honestly saw an opportunity for a growth of influence for myself and also a greater impact on the world. And that's what I really wanted to see happen. And I'm glad I made that shift, because I've seen the transformative work in people's lives when they do bring their soul to work, and when you do create a culture within a business that people can be engaged beyond just the gimmick stuff,
Yeah.
but really engaged on a heart level. I've witnessed it. I've experienced it transformative organizationally as well. And so that transition was really about like this belief that business can be a great catalyst for good, and leaders are leaders and people are people, and you stick them in different systems, they're still people and they're still leaders. They still have a heart to do good. You don't have to leave your work and work for a charity to be charitable.
Yeah.
Like, you can
Well
be
said.
all of that I was in the nonprofit space. I can be that in my work. I just have to figure out how to craft that in.
In that first year or two, when you were kind of figuring out the transition, it sounds like one of the benefits was that you didn't know what the rules were. So you could come in with fresh eyes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
say, why not?
That's it. That's the practice though. It's every
Yeah.
single leader that's listening on the porch right now. You've all joined us on the porch. If you could walk away from your business for a day, knowing that within that time you could change anything, and the impact that change would have, and the impact it would have on people and the culture and all that, and you would make that change, that you would come back to that business and it would be changed, what would that change look like, and why haven't you done it yet? It's because you know the rules.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
It's because there's rules in place, and we don't want to press over those rules, because we don't, it's the old phrase, like, here be dragons, right? There's like parts of the map. If you look at old ancient maps, there would be parts of the map where there would just be a dragon or like a sea serpent. And those were areas on the map that we assume someone may have saw a sea serpent, but actually what was happening is they would draw beasts and creatures in areas on the map that had not been explored yet. And so there's always this fear that if you go past this boundary or this rule, that there's a dragon that's going to, eat you. And that's why we hold back. We hold back because we are, afraid of our own beliefs and our own greatness, and we limit ourselves and we play small. And we've been taught that, and it's been reaffirmed in business. One time we tried to, make a suggestion and it was shot down, and that told us there's limits. We tried to pursue adding a new program into the business, and it was canceled last second after we worked 3 months, and it told us again, don't try. But I came in very disruptive and had the leadership support around me, and like you said, didn't know the rules, and I came in and just went for it. And I think having that fresh, no rule experience was the thing that really that was really the catalyst for how quickly the change happened within the company that hired me.
Yeah.
For sure.
That's so good. Well, somebody said today, I was listening to a TED talk this morning, and they said that innovation happens on the fringes. When you combine unlikely elements together, you create alchemy in ways that you couldn't have any other way. And I hear your story and I think about, when I went through coaching school, I was like 27 coming out of full-time ministry into coaching school. And when I walked in the room for coaching school, everyone was a decade older than me. And I thought, what have I done? What have I got myself into? I shouldn't even be here. Like, I'm way over my skis. This is kind of like embarrassing. And that same piece of like not having all that life experience meant I went into coaching school, and it was so simple for me to pick up the coaching skills because I didn't have 30 years of telling people what to do and giving advice. I had only been like a kid playing the drums for ministry. And so, I had such a different experience. And because I didn't know a lot, and because I came in wide-eyed and didn't have any boundaries, I was able to create something fresh. And I think that you're sharing your story. And I think that makes perfect sense to me. Coming out of ministry, doing so much soul care, seeing through to the heart of people, and then being able to bring that into business. That makes sense. That's exciting to me. That's really cool.
Yeah. And I think that's the challenge, right? Is to be able to dream again, and to believe again, and to hope again, and to view our places of work as places of opportunity where new things can be cultivated, rather than seeing it as like the, museums that keep these rules in place, and these processes that aren't really benefiting those that come in to work for us, and aren't really creating that flourishing environment for people to fully recognize their own sense of calling and life purpose, and this desire we all have inside of us to know that our meaning or our contribution matters. Like, we have that sense of meaning in nonprofit work that when I came into I call it regular business, as if nonprofit's not business, but regular business, it's like, man, it's I just saw a lot of people showing up to work without that sense of meaning, and showing up for a paycheck. And it just seemed to me as though there was a massive miss in the business world, and with leaders to go beyond managing to really leading, and that's where we really build trust. And that's where we build a team that, our employees aren't going to be with us forever. Our team maybe won't work with us or for us forever. But when we're building those relationships with those that we lead, and they know that we truly do care, that's the difference maker, I think, is when I came into regular business, I just really cared about people.
That's what you had. That's what you knew.
I just shared my story. I was real vulnerable. I talked about my childhood and the things that I had experienced, and they were just like blown away. And I'm up there crying, like I'm like going from being a pastor and being honest about like what my struggles are. And I'm like, nobody told me I had to come in and like, put on a fake front for people. I just got up and started sharing my heart and what I wanted for them as employees to come to work and have a sense of why they're coming beyond a paycheck, and finding their purpose and calling in life, and sharing stories about, how I discovered that, and watching employees cry as I'm crying. I'm talking new hires. This was new hire group, like 30 new hires, and everybody just crying together.
I love it.
Yeah, and I didn't know that wasn't a part of normal business, to be completely honest with you.
You were like, idea. What's the problem here? We always, I'm doing an altar call. Who's coming?
I remember when I first started. Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah. How do I take up an offering here? I remember when I started growing a beard, I was told it like, that's going to be bad for business. I'm just like, what are you like, can we get beyond all this bullshit stuff? And can we really, what are we doing? Like, why are we doing, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why does it matter? If it didn't exist, would anybody care?
Yep.
Who are we doing it for?
Yes.
I think how do you bring your soul to work is actually starting to ask more curious, dynamic questions than we've been asking, because we've been just getting the wrong answers, you know?
Yes.
We've been getting the wrong answers because we've been asking the wrong questions.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I think, we always say this concept of like employee engagement. How do I get more employee engagement? And I think that's an example of like that question is going to serve up more policies than it is going to help everyone go deeper and figure out who they are, self-advocate, take responsibility for their lives, and really enrich their entire life. And so I think you bring up a really good point, and I'm so glad Sam always transcribes and takes all these notes, because I get so excited about what you're sharing. And you bring up a really good point that depending on the question we ask, we may not get a useful answer. The questions that we ask matter.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. I think like, and then once we ask the questions that we're asking matter. I think one of them that's really good is sitting down with every single person in the organization as a leader, depending on how large the organization is within your team, and just simply saying, what are you passionate about? What do you want?
Yes.
You know, as a leader, I'm here to help you get what you want.
Mm.
As a manager, I'm here to help me get what I want.
Mm-hmm.
As a leader, I'm here to help you get what you want. So what do you want from this job? What do you want in terms of the success of this business that you're working for? You know, what do you want for your family? I mean, it's just really, it's asking the right questions. It's getting back to that. I think it's so important. It matters so
Yes.
greatly. Yeah.
Well, even you asking that question, I can imagine, based on things that happen on social media when I talk like this, I can imagine that leaders sometimes, or business owners, we can kind of bristle with like, you want me to ask somebody I'm hiring what they want out of this? And you and I are thinking, yeah, that's exactly what you want to ask, because
what else are you asking them?
Exactly. It's wild. Now, okay, you brought up something, and I got to go back to it because this is a true pattern that I see with thought leaders, and you've already mentioned it. And people that have spent time reflecting on their childhood experiences, on their relationships with family, with their community, which can be really painful. I mean, I don't know, a lot of people are like, I had the perfect childhood. It's usually like everything was hard and I went to therapy.
Yes.
But I see this in heart-centered leaders, that they have taken energy and resources and time to go all the way back to the beginning and really understand what brought them to this moment. And I know you've done that deep work as well. And that's what makes you talk about soul care and connection in this way, because you've done this deep work. Is there a story that you could share with us, or a memory from your childhood that shaped you for moments like this to be the type of person that wants to help people bring their souls to work? What's something from your childhood?
Well, first of all, thank you for asking the right question.
Yes.
No, I think that's a valuable question to ask. And I also believe that it's important for us to understand that childhood trauma
Mm-hmm.
is not something you get rid of. You can't therapy it out of your life. You can get better at working through it, managing, dealing with it. But I have pain.
Yeah.
You know, I think the reason I say it's the right question is not just because it's a good question. I think it's the right question because what the reason that we have relationship is not because I'm successful in your success. The reason that we have relationship and what connects us is the fact that we know what pain feels like.
Mm.
This is rehumanizing your life and your business by understanding that what connects us is our struggle. It's the fact that we do have trauma. It's the fact that we know what it feels like to hurt. We know what it feels like not to be cared for. I know what it feels like to be abandoned. I know what it feels like to have leaders that don't care, right? And so these are
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
these are all really important things to recognize, because I lead from a place of pain. I think a lot of purpose is discovered from a place of our own pain, because we want to bring healing where we've been healed.
Yes.
If hurt people, then healed people heal people.
Yes.
And so where do I hurt? At 6 years old, my mother, after being diagnosed paranoid schizophrenic, died from suicide. She was my rock. Like, so I had an older sister, thank God. She was 13 at the time, and September 10th was National Suicide Awareness Day, and that's actually the day she died from suicide, was September 10th, 39 years ago. And 39 years of sorting through the pain of that and figuring, there's a lot of good perspective that came early on, where as a child I started asking, how can I help others, and I've always had this heart to bring healing and hope to people, because I didn't feel that, I didn't
Yes.
have a family structure that was conducive for healing. I hadn't gone to therapy till I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
About 5
Yeah.
years ago, I started therapy. I hadn't gone to therapy or anything. At the time of my mom's death, my dad was a heroin addict. And so I had an older sister. Within a year, my father remarried to a woman that had lost her husband to cancer, and she had a couple daughters. And so now I've got this new family. But my dad's trying to be a father to these other siblings, these new siblings that I have, within a year of losing my mom.
Yeah, that's a
And
lot.
I mean, there's a lot there, but that what I've discovered through therapy and self-care and the work, that internal work, is that what's been driving me is I've been trying to answer this question I've been asking to myself. I thought it was, am I safe? Because I never really felt safe.
Yeah.
What I've discovered lately, and honestly, I've not shared this with only a few people, but what I've been asking myself my whole life since that is there hope? And whether that's in business or the world or things that I'm seeing around me and family, I just need to know that there's hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
When something like schizophrenia with my mom, like when she was 30 years old, obviously there was a moment where she didn't feel that there was any, and as a child, I
Yes.
think I didn't recognize that that's what I've been longing for this whole time. So even within the
Yeah.
context of connecting with employees at work, everything I've done up to this point has been like, no, but there's hope. Like we can make an impact on the world. Like we just have to believe that we can do this. Like whether it's in the church environment or business environment, whatever catalyst you find yourself in that you believe can provide hope. Like to me, that's the longing that I have. That's the main message, is that there is.
Yes.
Like you can be a kid with a really effed up childhood. I mean, really effed up. And we could pull back more and more layers of the onion, and it would just stink more and more on this
It
call.
would just get
There's
worse.
a lot. Yeah. There's a lot more there.
Yeah.
But the impact that has had on me, and recognizing that my own pain and hurt, and trauma, and all of those things are also carried by others, then I bring my soul to work, right? Because I'm not given any other option. I don't get to go through that as a child. And I would say this for everyone that's on this call. You're obligated through the things that you go through to be able to show up and not just go with the status quo and the norm of how everybody else does things. Like there's this sense on the inside of those that have been through that pain, that deep-seated pain on the inside, that there's a connection, a deeper connection that we have with those that we work with and work for. And I think it can be a great influence on how we lead others through our heart and through our soul. But we have to, it's hurtful. It's like you said, it's painful to deal with our pain.
Yes.
But it's in that we also see redemption. It's in that we also see transformation, where we see others heal.
Yes.
When we share our process of healing, and also recognizing, like, for everybody on the call, yes, I'm on Lexapro. Yes, I'm getting therapy. Yes, I'm doing the work, and we'll continue to need to do that work, because there's realities in me that I can't just overlook and say, you know what, I'm just going to go into the business world, get a job, make a lot of money, get a career, and then retire. Like that kind of life is just not an option for me, Lindsay,
Yeah.
to be honest with you. I never saw that as even an option. So I can't even imagine going to work for a paycheck. I think you can
Yeah.
get paid really well to do what you love and to make an impact on the world. But I have got to bring my passion and my soul into everything that I do. And that could be in HR. If we have HR professionals on, we have executives on right now. We have, if you're in any form of influence and leadership position within a team, I think
Yes.
the greatest call is that call of leadership. Care for me, right? For
Yes.
myself first, and then care for others really well. Love me first. You have to
Mm-hmm.
love yourself really well first before you can love others. And part of that love is caring for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because some of us are, carrying around a child on the inside of us that's still hurting a lot. And
Yes.
what does it mean to bring healing to that inner child?
Yes.
Um, yeah, and from that, then we lead. From our pain and from our struggle, we lead. From our understanding that it's not me being an expert in everybody else's life and saying I'm the leader because I know more than you.
Right.
Leaders believe that those that they lead are experts of their own life.
Yes.
you know
Yeah.
so that to me is like authentic leadership, where you can serve the needs of others because you've already served your own
Yeah. That makes a
before
lot of
you
sense.
before you step into that space. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I was one of my speaking heroes was talking. He had this event that I went to learn from him. And, I learned a ton of skills and everything like that for keynoting. But one thing he said is he brought his real life therapist who's been on the porch, Dr. Joan Rosenberg. He brought her on stage. And he said, if there's one thing you remember from this weekend, if you want to be a leader, if you want to be a keynote speaker, you must have a therapist on your team, because every time you come up on the stage or every time you go to lead people, you're either there from a full cup ready to give, or you're there tapping your cup, waiting for everyone else to fill it for you. And that just really stood out to me. When we talk about the responsibility of a leader, it's to become more self-aware and to heal and to be able to lead people from a grounded and healed place, so that when I show up as a speaker, when we show up as leaders, we're really there to say, I'm here to give. I'm not asking you to heal me. I'm doing that work.
That's really good. I think, when you're talking, I'm seeing this metaphor of a cup, and it's and as the illustration I'm seeing, or the metaphor, is like we lead from our overflow.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean that there's not days that we show up and feel empty and feel spent.
Totally.
Like that I hopefully we don't have to say that. I mean, there's days that I go to work and I'm just like, I don't feel engaged, I feel disconnected. So I'm not trying to paint this rosy picture where if you do self-care, then you can show up and you're just abounding with all this stuff. But I do think the overflow is, if I care for me and I fill up my cup before I go into a space where I'm leading others, then all of their contribution goes back to them.
Yes. I'm not
They're
like, thank
giving.
you.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's more about this filling up and allowing the overflow to help and to be of service to others. And
Yes.
so, yeah.
Well, and it's so
Good
cool
stuff.
too to see you, because you're doing this candle conference, which I'm so jazzed about. And, you know, you're bringing together leaders that match that exact mentality that you're talking about. Practitioners, people that are doing it in real time, people who have done the deep work. Claude Silver, who's been a guest on the Porch, who's coming to the candle conference too. She's an example of that. Can you tell us a little bit about the candle conference that's happening this spring?
Yeah, so CANDLE, CANDL, is culture and leadership. And so the belief that all great culture has a foundation of great leadership, and then our whole conversation that we're talking about today, great leadership does great self-care. Right?
Yes.
So I would say for CandleCon, we want to really ignite and light a fire around 3 areas of our life, and that would be first of all, our well-being. It's what we're talking, a lot of what we're discussing today are 3 W's. You know, I used to be a pastor, so everything has to start with the same letter.
Yes, it's got to be an alliteration. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so well-being, the workplace, and the world, right? And this is where, as leaders, we can best contribute, and starting with our own self and from our own well-being, being able to cultivate and to foster a culture within business, within the workplace, and then the world at large. Like, how is the workplace becoming a catalyst for really having that positive impact in the world that, you know, that for me, again, going back to the history of working in the nonprofit space, I mean, that's ultimately what we're trying to do, is like, how do we help?
Yes.
You know, beyond just doing business and making money and being profitable, like, what is the really the force for good behind this business, or what with the culture of good we call a cause. So within CandleCon, what's going to be really fascinating, and I've never been to a conference like this, but we're planning on around 300 people attending, and I want it to be a collective contribution. So we've got what I don't want is just like, okay, we're going to put you, and you're coming, right?
Yeah.
You're the speaker. Yeah. So you come and speak, and you're the expert, and you're going to tell everybody how to do business and do their life and stuff. And then you get off the stage like every other conference, and then everybody like takes down one little note that they took, and they're like, okay, yeah, that's really challenging. I need to do that when I get back home. And then we write it on a notepad, and then it just becomes, and that's virtually every freaking conference I've ever been to.
Gosh.
I go home with like a really good idea, but then how do you implement?
100%.
Here's what's different. I want it to be very inspiring. I mean, obviously it's candle. It's we're going to light a candle. It's going to be like the spark of something new.
Yep.
But after we have someone present, we're going to have discussion within the entire community and ask curious questions. Mm-hmm. You're a coach, so asking those coaching questions and really learning from everybody's shared knowledge and experience. So in 2 ways. So we'll have this overall discussion around this and writing down ideas. We'll have people writing down ideas on what we're calling the wall of effing great ideas. It's fascinating great ideas. And anytime throughout the 2 days of the conference, anytime that there is a aha moment, a spark, we're going to write those sparks down. We're going to write them down in 3 different areas: how it pertains to how we feel, how it pertains to how we believe, and then how it pertains to how we behave, or our action steps.
Yeah.
And we're gonna compile this wall of effing great ideas, fascinating ideas that we hear, and then we're gonna take all of those ideas and create an implementable strategy within our business, so that we don't just go away with ideas, but we have a strategy of sorts that we can all go back to our places of work and actually begin to implement, because there's never a shortage of great ideas. Mm-hmm. There's always a shortage of how to implement.
Exactly.
So this is going to be kind of an experiment of sorts that I'd love for all the listeners to join us April 20th and 21st.
Yes.
This is going to be an experiment of, if we light this candle and do this conference in a way that's quite different than what's been done before, what is going to come out of this is really going to be a discovery.
Yes.
Because we really don't know what fully is going to come out of that. That's what I'm excited. I like building things with a lot of uncertainty.
I love it. Well, that's the adventure of
always
life.
work great. You know what I'm saying, though?
That's a business rule. We're just going
Yeah.
in. We're going to have an adventure together.
Well, here's the disclaimer. If you're putting IKEA furniture together, stick to the rules.
Yes.
The first two items of furniture from IKEA I put together, I didn't follow any of the rules. And let me tell you.
What are these screws for?
Yeah. Totally had extra parts. It was an absolute wreck, Proof being, tonight I'm going over to one of our daughter's houses and fixing her bed. So
there it is.
That is what it is. Yeah, it's a mess when you don't follow the rules in some context. But when the rules that are in place are restrictive in terms of the flourishing of those that I'm leading, then the rules need to change.
Yes, I love that.
The second thing is, don't make rules where there are none.
Yes.
Like,
agreed.
We always have this idea that we have to keep compiling rules.
Yep.
And rarely will you ever talk to someone who's successful in leadership and growing business and doing everything that they did. And the reason that they give for their success is because they followed the original business plan. You're
exactly right. You know how many times I've been like, tell me about your 15-year goals. And really successful people are like, are you kidding me right now? We're going to be holograms in 15 years. I'm just doing today.
Nobody even has a clue what they're doing today.
Exactly. It's so good. Yeah. We got to get you to the candle conference. We put the link in the chat so you can click on it right there. And I'm testing it. I tested it and it worked. Okay. You got to come. It's in Indianapolis. That's where Ryan and I are headquartered. And this event is going to be fantastic. When you see the lineup of speakers for this, they all break the rules in different ways. And that's what's so exciting. And I can tell just from the people that are going to show up that are coming right now, I can tell that we're going to have some innovative moments, that we are right on the edge of coming up with new ways to connect and help each other at work. And I'm excited. I'm so excited. I feel lucky to be a part of it. And please join us.
Yeah, I think the experiment is what happens when you take innovation and you mix it with empathy.
Love it. I want that. I want to see this. Yes.
Yeah. When you mix those two things together, what comes out of that? And so it's going to be a discovery for everybody who attends, which is real exciting.
Oh, it's so cool. Yeah, well, hey, Ryan, I got a couple real quick questions for you. I know I got to let you go soon. Can I throw a couple quick ones at you?
Please do. Yeah.
Okay. Pizza or ice cream for dinner? For dinner.
Well, that's not the right question. The question is, can you do both?
I love it. Thinking outside the box. He's like, that's not a rule.
Ice cream on pizza.
Done. Pizza.
Ice cream. No, I would say definitely pizza. I'm a pizza guy.
I love it. I get the pizza vibe.
I'm gonna stick to the dinner thing and go with pizza.
You're gonna do it? Okay, I understand. Okay, but on a serious note, I have an actual question from our buddy Stephanie Hicks. Here's a question. What is the best way for a leader to start to gauge like the temperature or culture of a team? Would you use an assessment tool? Is it a specific conversation? How do you kind of start to quantify that and engage with the team to create some intentionality around everything we're talking about today?
I think, very quickly, and this is a longer conversation. We could have a whole time on the Porch talking about the process, but I would say that discovering with each team member what their core values are, and as leaders coaching, and I could provide resources. There's resources out there to help your team members identify what their values are.
Yeah.
and then cultivating whether they're, or actually fostering whether they're living and creating an environment where they can actually live up to those values on a daily basis. I think is so important, because if there's competing values between your team member and the team dynamic or the organization, there's always going to be that rub. I really think it comes back to each team member's individual values, and then you as a leader being able to measure it moving forward beyond that is helping that person identify observable behaviors that they feel align with each one of those values, and then having them make their own commitments toward what do they want from those values, and then what do they want from you as a leader to help them honor their personal values, because those personal values are how they show up to work. It's how productive they are. It's how connected and engaged they are. They cannot be engaged as a human being if their values are not engaged. As you engage with their values, you'll engage with them. Secondly, I would say this: foster an environment where your team members feel fulfilled. Create opportunity for them to give back and to do good, and to bring their soul in ways that aren't just about getting the task done. But part of the culture of good that we teach is like create environments and opportunities for them to do good and to give back, because true engagement is fulfillment. That's what we're really saying. Nobody wants engaged. Nobody wants engaged. They used to want to get married and get the watch after 30 years. Now we don't want to be married. Then companies were like, well, at least be engaged with us. And so we're trying to get everybody engaged because we need their commitment. And the reality is our employees are dating us. They don't want to be engaged. They don't want to get married. You have to every single day show up for your employees and really show them that you really, really do care, because our employees are dating us. They're not getting engaged. I hate to break it to everybody.
Woo! That's brilliant. I've never heard it framed that way. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually exactly what we try to explain all the time. That's exactly it.
I use engagement too all the time. And the way I get around that is saying, what is true engagement? It's fulfillment. It's fulfillment. If I feel fulfilled, I'm there.
That's right.
If I don't feel fulfilled, I'm somewhere else.
That's right.
Right. So that's what engagement is. It's fulfillment to me.
That's so powerful.
Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, and Stephanie wrote back and she said, I love the idea of each team member identifying their values and sharing what they want from you as a leader. Brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's great.
Because if you're not honoring their values, you're not honoring them.
Yes.
Which goes back to, if you're not honoring your values, you're not honoring yourself.
Yep.
And that's the rub we get when we go to work and our values aren't being honored, because then we're not being honored. And when we're not being honored, we're dishonored. So what you're doing is you're honoring the person working for you when you honor their values. If you don't know their values, the question that I would have is, how do you know that you're honoring them? How do you know that you're honoring the person?
Yes.
The only way to truly know that and to quantify and measure it is through the observable behaviors, though. And we could get into all of that, but that's something that is a missing element within organizations, within teams, within individuals. We know the values, or we have them listed, but nobody knows how they're being lived out. Nobody's measuring them. And I believe you can have a very loving, empathetic culture, measure it, and not lose its soul. And you do that through only measure the things that reinforce the values of the individual and of the organization.
That is brilliant. This was such a good conversation, Ryan. There's so much that stands out to me. I'm so glad my team takes notes for me, and that we recorded this. Yeah. And that we recorded this because, bring this talk to your team, listen to it in the car, bring it with you where you go, because there's so many good examples in here, and not nuggets of wisdom. That sounds almost too small, but this is a totally different framework to start from. And I think that's one of the things I admire most about you, Ryan, is that you start with a whole different framework and a whole different set of questions. And so if you want to stay connected to Ryan, which obviously you do, first, definitely check him out on LinkedIn. He's got his own website, cultureofgood.com. You can go there as well, or his website under his name. And please come hang out with us in April for the candle conference. It's going to be fantastic. Everything you need is in the chat. You can connect with Ryan there. Ryan, I appreciate you so much. Thank you for being a part of this today and for bringing hope to all of us in just a difficult season. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you so much. And I just wanted to say, you called me big brother earlier. I would adopt you as my little sister any day. I love, from the moment you were on stage there and talking and met afterwards, I knew your heart immediately. So when you ask, what does it mean to bring your soul to work? I would say it would to be like that, to keep your heart out there.
Yeah.
And I just appreciate you a lot. I appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
In many ways, I look up to what you're doing. So thank you for what you do.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, you know where to find us, everybody. We're gonna, I gotta let Ryan go. We gotta let him go on with his day, let him leave the porch. But thank you so much for being here. Thanks everybody for being a part of this and jumping in. We'll get a recording to you so you can share it with your team and your leaders. And we'll see you next time on the porch. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks everyone.